Bruins GM Don Sweeney has revealed the next move for the Boston Bruins, coming out in a recent interview and detailing the possibilities of signing a PTO. We're going to be breaking it down, going over to these players, as well as the prospect that is the most highly touted heading into this Bruins season to make the roster out of camp. We're going to be breaking that down as well here today. Before we do jump into everything that we have in this video, though, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, be sure to hit the sub button. Join me here on the channel. We have a lot of Boston Bruins news coming here out of camp and getting ready for the season. You won't want to miss it. I'm going to have it all here. We also know that just over 60% of you guys watching right now have not hit that sub button already. We're on the road to 8K. Your sport's been absolutely phenomenal as of late, but we need to jump straight into this because obviously heading into this season, the Bruins have made some very interesting moves, I think is the safest way to put it, while also coming out here and making some that would try to make this team better. But one thing that we know this Bruins team has done over the past few years is go for the PTO. We saw one last year in Tyler Johnson, who was very good to start throughout his PTO, ultimately didn't get signed for quite some time by the Bruins, played a few games, was really bad, and left. But heading into this season right now, they're in a much different scenario where the Boston Bruins could certainly use really any help they can get. And I mean, looking at the available free agents right now, there are a lot of interesting ones. Now, I want to pull up Don Sweeney's quote here first, going over what he had to say. And he said, "We're monitoring that market right now. We're perfectly fine, but we have spoken to some players that we feel would provide an even more competition amongst our group." So Don Sweeney not just naming any of these players, but also coming out and revealing that, hey, we're going to use these guys as an internal competition for our team to make sure that we're here and able to make sure that these players that are going to be trying to crack the lineup this year are going up against the best competition they can, while also knowing that their spot has to be earned. It is not given. Now, going into it, as we saw there, Don Sweeney didn't name any names in specific, but as we go and take a look here on Puckpedia at the current free agents, you see a few who are already under PTOs, but these are the players that are under 30. And just taking a look at this, I really don't think the Bruins would go ahead and sign anybody to a PTO who's really any bit older than 30. It's safe to say that they won't go ahead and also sign any PTOs that are defensemen. So it really leaves us with forwards that are a young possibility of cracking into this team at a very good pace that they could jump in to a much higher spot than what some of these players currently on this team would. So just taking a look at this here, and you can see down the list, it goes in age group. Nikolai Kovalenko, I think, is probably the most interesting here, solely because he is recently of the KHL, has played a little bit of NHL time and professional in North America, but is, in my opinion, going to stay over in Russia. But when you're going down the list, there's one name in specific that really stands out to me, and before I jump into who that is, I want to know who you guys think of this list would be a good option for this Bruins team as well. Obviously, there's some guys like Jack Rosovich who we've spoken about. I believe we've spoken about Robbie Fabry as well here before, earlier this offseason. But going through this list, a name like Daniel Sprong can ring a bell, Robbie Fabry like I mentioned, but Jacob Vrana is the most interesting here by a landslide, in my opinion. And coming into this season and taking a look at how this team really would have an outlook of just by itself, you see the offense right now having a lot of different players that really are not guaranteed to have a spot come the end of the season or even after training camp. John Beecher is one of those options that we did extend here in this offseason. He's spoken about the role that he now has to come to be on that fourth line. Matt Poitras may be down the AHL. There's a lot of uncertainty there among other prospects as well. But when you're looking at that, there is some room to fill in on the offense. And Jacob Vrana, who's a player who's at 29 years old, has already had quite a bit of time in the NHL and is a name that a lot of people immediately recognize for being and going and playing with Alexander Ovechkin and, a very good Washington Capitals team for years before kind of bouncing around from a few teams. And I mean, just going to take a look at his stats here, I know they are very small. I do apologize. So you could pause this, zoom in, and kind of go through it. But over the Detroit Red Wings, the Washington Capitals, and a Stanley Cup win with the Washington Capitals, he don't just know how to win, but even over those years with the Washington Capitals, the years after the Stanley Cup, he really put up some solid point totals. And going out through that from, Hershey through Washington down to Detroit, he spent some good times with some good organizations, especially Washington and Hershey throughout those years. And at 29 years old, I think he has a lot of game left to play. And seeing him bounce from, the Blues, the Capitals, the Predators over the last few years, and also going down to the AHL for a little bit, he's a player that will have an option to be, back to what he was once upon a time. And I want to say for the Boston Bruins right now that, and I'll always say it, and you saw it last year, and you probably know and remember if you were here from this point last year, there is no loss to a PTO. It is a win-win. If he tries out, he plays good, you sign him. If he don't, you let him go. It's as easy as that. It's a risk-free move, and Jacob Vrana, in my opinion, has the highest ceiling that we could get out of all of these players right here. So, among all these names as well, like I said, let me know what you think about who could be an option here. I want to know what you guys think about Jacob Vrana as well. Do you think my point right now is, kind of in the right mindset as well? I think that Jacob Vrana, as a player that can jump into really anywhere on this lineup, could even be, if needed, a sneaky second-line winger over Victor Arvidsson. So let me know what you think about that. But of course, as we go down through this list, there is going to be a lot more people who are going to be cracking this roster, trying to crack this roster, so you give them more competition. I think Jacob Vrana brings that, but there are a lot of prospects as well on this team who are going to be trying to crack into the offense more so than defense, and one of those names right now is Dans Locmelis. He has been a player over the past few years that we've been speaking about a lot more, and I would say is the fastest growing Bruins prospect in terms of media coverage over the past, calendar year right now. So going into this training camp, he's someone now that for heading into his first professional league or first professional season, full season. And this is what we have coming from Ryan Mougenot. We're going to pull that up here now going into the whole idea behind his thoughts on Dans Locmelis. He says he's super bright, and I think he's going to push. He does a lot of things well, and he's got a real good future. He plays with a ton of courage, and you can't teach that. So even over the first few games that he's ended up playing with the Providence Bruins, he has had some very good success there, and is already highly touted by their coaching staff and players from down there as well. And I mean, you head into his experience. Obviously, he doesn't have too much at any professional level, but what he does have in terms of reps across North America is his play with Latvia on the international team, and closing out a run during the 2025 IHF World Championship where he scored 4 goals and 6 points over 7 games, and most of them matched up against NHL talent. And of course, we remember about a month ago, Sidney Crosby and him having a conversation, talking to each other, and Crosby giving them some very, high praise on that topic. But he has played several years with Latvia on their international team over the World Juniors, the World Championship as well, and is putting up some very good numbers throughout that time. Now, going into his stats already just as a pro, 6 games really. 3 goals, 9 assists, 12 points with Providence. Now, over 6 games last year, but that pace is unbelievable, especially for a 21-year-old who, over his time at UMass, has, definitely played against some NHL talent and, not at that level yet, but a lot of players who will and are going to be there heading into the season. And I think Dans Locmelis finds himself right in the mix with all of those players and all of these people who are going to be given the opportunity to make this Boston Bruins roster. So I want to know what you guys think right now. First of all, about Dans Locmelis. Second of all, about where he could fit into this roster, because of course, as we go into the offense, a lot of players that I've been mentioning that very well could be pushed out throughout this season, if not already at training camp. And although Dans Locmelis only has 6 games in Providence, that is really it for his actual pro, history, I guess. He's going to be someone that over the next season is going to be climbing the rankings among all prospects across the NHL, and I think that last year, for those 6 games, was already a good start, and he's definitely gotten a lot of time ahead of some of these players at the international level already. So I want to know what you guys think about that too, because I think he's going to be a very important one. Someone that I think we've been hearing so much more about, and a lot of players are certainly going to be expecting his arrival with Boston soon. Now, I do have one more thing before we finish this video off here from Dans Locmelis himself. He said, I just realized I could play at this level, and now you play against a Canadian team full of NHL players, and I felt like I can keep up with them. Maybe not dominate them yet, but I just feel I can play at their level. And that's what he had to say against playing Team Canada at the World Championship. So obviously his mindset is in the exact spot that everybody wants to see it. He's confident, not cocky, but very, very confident. And he's also a player that when he gets to that level, once he gets more reps under his belt, he's going to be an incredibly good player. So this is someone to keep an eye on, and I want to know what you guys think about his odds of making camp as well, and or getting through camp and making the NHL roster. But that's all I have in this one. If you got any more, kind of ideas behind the PTO stuff, let me know in the comments below, and also who you think could be a good option there. If not, Jacob Vrana. But like I said, that's all I got. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.